Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Plexuss webinar today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Chris, and I'll be the host of the webinar for the next hour or so. I'm the Premier Support Specialist here at Plexuss. Feel free to direct any questions you have for Richard or Rourke from the University of Illinois at Chicago, or I to the chat box on the right-hand side of the YouTube video here. If you are on the Plexuss homepage watching this, feel free to visit the YouTube page to ask questions. And we'll be answering those questions as the webinar is going on, and we'll have a question and answer session for Richard at the end of his presentation. But to start off, I'm going to go into the Plexuss website and give you a brief overview of some of the features we have for you on Plexuss and some of the changes that we've made recently, and really give you some options for getting recruited on Plexuss and show you some interesting tools. So let's go ahead and jump in there, and I'll show you a little bit more about the Plexuss platform. So you can see here, I'm on the home page of Plexuss.com, and we're going to go through these categories on the left-hand side of the page first. So up on the left side here, we have the Get Started area. This is where you can learn more about Plexuss if you do have any questions about how the system works, how the college rankings work, anything that you need to know about Plexuss would be here on this Get Started page. So definitely check out these videos down below. Moving on to the Find College area. If you do want to search for a school on Plexuss, you can use the top search bar. So if I wanted to check out the University of Illinois at Chicago, I can just go ahead and search it from that top search bar there, go check out the school page, or I can search for a school based on certain criteria. So if I knew I was interested in a specific state, for example, I wanted to go to school in California, I could select a city in California that I would interested in going to school in, or you can set tuition prices, graduate enrollment numbers, acceptance rate. You have the degree type. If you're interested in a bachelor's degree, for example, you can go ahead and select that there. You have test scores as well if you're interested in setting up minimum test scores to really see what schools you'd fit into. This is a great way to find schools and start your college search on Plexuss. Moving on to member colleges, these are really the schools that we think you're going to have the most success with on Plexuss, the highest response rates. So what I would recommend, after looking for colleges on the Find College section here, if you want to go ahead and check out the member colleges we do have on Plexuss, these are going to be the most responsive schools. So if we scroll down here, we can see University of Illinois at Chicago. If we're interested in being recruited by UIC, we could go ahead and click on that Get Recruited button, and UIC would be notified that we're interested in being recruited by them. As we scroll down, we can see more member schools. You can see for the University of Arkansas, I've already requested to be recruited by them. So I recommend coming in here and going through these schools and clicking on that Get Recruited button for all those that you're interested in. Finally, this Compare Colleges section. If you wanted to compare two schools, for example, the University of Illinois at Chicago, and we wanted to compare this to another member school we have here, Spring Hill College in Mobile, Alabama. If we're going to go ahead and battle these two schools, it's going to pull up some stats about each university here, and we can see that I have yet to recruit or asked to be recruited by Spring Hill. If I was interested in doing so, I'd just go ahead and click on that Get Recruited button. You can see ranking information. This is Plexuss ranking. So this is a good gauge of the quality of schools on the system. We have acceptance rates, tuition, total expenses for on-campus living here, student body, application deadlines. So there is a good amount of information. If you wanted to add any more schools to this battle, go ahead and click this click to add school button here, and you can really get a lot of great comparisons. But moving on to your home page, if you click on this home button, this is going to take you to your student portal homepage. This is what you'll see every time you log in. It's going to show you the number of colleges that want to recruit you, the number of colleges that have viewed your profile recently, and the number of colleges Plexuss recommends for you. If you click on any of these buttons, you'll be taken into your portal where you'll see the information about schools you're interacting with. But what I recommend first is making sure you have as much of your profile completed as you can. The more you complete of your profile, the higher chances are that schools are going to be interested in you as a student, because they'll have more information about you as a student, and they can know what to reach out to you about. So we can see there's personal info, objective information. I have filled out a good amount of it on my profile. You can see on the top right the percentage of your profile that's completed. We need to hit at least 30% to be a really viable candidate on Plexuss. But if we jump to this financial information section, this is one of the most important areas on Plexuss. You do need to make sure that you have uploaded financial documents to really be a strong candidate on Plexuss. You can select your financial range here, the ability essentially you have to spend on college for the first year. I have my account set at $20,000 to $30,000 for the first year. But like I said, uploading a financial document is very important. Here, you can click here to see an example of what a financial document is going to look like. You do want to get this from your bank and make sure to upload this on Plexuss. There's also tips for seeing exactly what you need to upload this document. So if you click on this tips link here, it'll show you some important points about the bank statements that you need to upload. So I highly recommend uploading a bank statement if you do take your Plexuss account seriously and do want to be taken seriously by schools as well in the system. So taking your time and making sure to add as much information as possible is really going to make you a strong candidate on Plexuss. So moving on to the portal section here, the third area, we can see schools that are on your list. These are schools that you have reached a handshake with. We can see that by the handshake icon here. This means that you have expressed interest in the school and the school has accepted that interest, or the school has reached out to you and you've accepted the interest from the school. So we can see I have 2 handshakes on this account. I can go ahead and directly message the University of Arkansas if I wanted to by just clicking on that message envelope there. That's going to take us to our messages section, which is the second area here. We can see that it's created a message thread for me. I can go ahead and ask the University of Arkansas a question, and a representative will get back to me through Plexuss. You can see the previous conversations you've had here as well. So this is a great area to really have good conversations with schools, ask them questions about the application process, or if you want any more information from them, this is the great way to connect with schools. Moving down to the third category here, this is the recommendation area. So I have 4 schools recommended to me currently. If I was interested in the University of Kansas, I can click on that link. It'll take me to their school page, and we can see a little bit more information about the University of Kansas there to make my decision if I am interested in the University of Kansas. And if we click here, we can see the information on why Kansas was recommended to me. So they have a high rank, they offer my degree and major, and my score puts me in the top 75 percentile of the past year's enrollment class. So if I'm interested, go ahead and click yes, and they'll be moved to my list of schools. Moving on to this area here, this is schools that want to recruit me. So we can see here that University of Illinois at Chicago has reached out and expressed interest in my account on Plexuss. So because I'm interested in being recruited by University of Illinois at Chicago and I want to learn more about the school, I'm going to go ahead and click yes. It's going to ask me the reason why I'm interested. So I can say, location, academic, reputation, and we can see my scores in comparison to the ones that are average for UIC. And once I click to add them to my list, it's going to show up in my list here at the top. So now I'm able to send a message to a representative from UIC and get some more information from them about the application process or whatever other questions I might have. And the final section here is colleges that have viewed my profile. None have viewed me recently, but over time, you'll see that these numbers do increase. So being active in your portal is really important, especially in the messages section, really engaging with schools. I recommend coming in here often and having good conversations with the universities you're interested in. And again, filling out as much of your profile as possible is really going to give you the best chance to be successful on the platform, especially that financial information where you can go ahead and upload a document of your bank statement. So that's a quick summary of some things that we have for you on the Plexuss platform. So feel free after the webinar is over to go ahead and jump in there and try to get that profile completed. Now I'm going to turn it over to Richard O'Rourke from the University of Illinois at Chicago, and he's going to talk a little bit more about U.S. college and admissions and scholarships. So Rick, thank you and welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, and good morning from the University of Illinois at Chicago. Again, my name is Richard O'Rourke. I'm an Associate Director in the Office of Admissions. Today we're going to talk about how to be competitive for selective admissions and for scholarships. And this presentation is geared toward an undergraduate audience. If there are any graduate students in the room, I may be able to get to your question later, but the content here will be very undergraduate specific. Now, as you may know, there are about 4,000 plus colleges and universities in the United States, and each one is unique in its own way. UIC is also known as Chicago's public research university. In the United States, there are just under 100 universities that are considered Carnegie One Research University, meaning they spend a significant amount of funding on research, okay? And in the state of Illinois, here in Illinois, there are 4 Carnegie One Research Universities, but there is only one public research university in the city of downtown Chicago, and that is the University of Illinois at Chicago. And here in the photo, you can see part of our East Campus and our proximity to Chicago's downtown financial district and its cultural districts. We're also very close to one of the largest medical districts in the United States. So before we get into our topic, I'm going to tell you a little bit about UIC. And we'll start with our academics. So we are ranked top 70 public universities in the United States by U.S. News and World Report. We're the largest medical school in the United States. We offer top-ranked programs in nursing. I think we're number 2 in the nation. Number 1 undergraduate business program, ranked number 1 in Chicago. Top-ranked engineering programs as well, and several programs in our liberal arts and sciences. We're also ranked in the top 200 research universities in the world, and that's by the Times Higher Education rankings. So we are there in the top 200. These are our undergraduate colleges. So we're engineering, where you also have computer science and engineering, education, architecture, design and the arts, liberal arts and sciences, business administration, and urban planning and public affairs. Then we have our upper division colleges. Applied health science, these are undergraduate again. Applied health science, public health, pharmacy, and nursing. They're upper division, and what that means is your first 2 years you need to satisfy prereq requirements. And then your last 2 years of your 4-year degree is focused in the major in this college. Now, we are a large university, but we're a large public university, but 30% of our classes have less than 20 students, and 81% of our classes have under 50 students. So we are a small town feel in a very large urban environment. Our student faculty ratio is about 17 to 1. We offer an honors college, and honors college is a smaller college within the university. When you look at universities, ask about honors college if they have one. UIC offers one. And this is also where many of our scholarships come from, is the Honors College. Now, an Honors College is going to be smaller classes, smaller class sizes. There'll be research requirements. You'll have your own advisors, your own labs, your own special dormitories, and additional opportunities. There'll be community service requirements. It's highly selective, highly competitive, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But honors college is similar to maybe the IB of college or the A level or the advanced placement AP. So again, I mentioned we are a research university. Discovery is our main focus. We like to say that we discover what other universities teach. And undergraduate students definitely can take advantage of research. And we are looking for students, undergraduate students who are comfortable in a research environment. We spend about $412 million a year in sponsored research. And we are among the top 50 research funded institutions in the world. We have programs like the Liberal Arts and Sciences Undergraduate Research Initiative that will allow you to apply for grants that help you fund your own research. We also have what's called the Innovation Center. The Innovation Center on our campus is a place where students, faculty, and businesses in the Chicago area can come together and solve problems. And there is funding there in the Innovation Center as well. The electronic visualization lab, and you can see it in the picture in the background. This lab is on our campus. It was made famous back in 1970s, where UIC worked with George Lucas on the first Star Wars movie, and we helped develop the Death Star model for the Star Wars movie. Today, this lab now has expanded to have its own patented 3D technology. That technology is used not just by computer science students, but also psychologists, anthropologists, archaeologists, different types of majors that come in and visualize in 3D concepts that they only understand in theory. We are a very diverse institution. Diversity is considered one of our greatest strengths. As a research university, why do we look at diversity as important? One reason is because our research shows, and studies show this, if you have two groups, one group, Group A, is not very diverse, and Group B is very diverse in ethnicity, socioeconomic background, and you give them a problem, Group B, the more diverse group, is going to be more innovative, more efficient, and more effective at solving that problem than Group A. And we can show this after study after study. And that's why diversity is very important to us as a research institution, and we do consider this one of our greatest strengths. We are ranked in the top 20 most diverse university campuses in the United States. And this is among our about 17,000 undergraduates and about 11,000 graduate students. 33% of our students speak English as a second language. So that's very high. And we are a Hispanic and Asian American serving institution, meaning that about 20% of our campus is either Hispanic or Asian. Now, as a public research university, our mission is service to others, and our primary focus is the great city of Chicago. But our research and service expands all over the world, great cities all over the world, and solving problems globally. Our faculty and our students are in Antarctica looking at global warming trends. We're in the Amazon basin studying ecology and human evolution. We're in Switzerland at the CERN laboratories looking at dark matter and the fundamental properties of nature. We're in Africa looking at micro-entrepreneurship. We have our own micro-entrepreneurship research center in Africa. We're also in India working with hospitals to help improve cardiovascular and heart health. We're in China looking at bridge monitoring systems and bridge safety, and developing new fiber optic systems to improve bridge safety more efficiently and more cost effective. So again, we're a Chicago serving institution, but our reach expands all over the world. If you look at our university mission, and when you apply to universities, the first thing you want to look at is the university mission. What makes the university unique? And what is it about that university that they may be looking for in applicants, not just for admissions, but also more importantly for scholarships? UIC's university mission is to create knowledge that transforms our views of the world, and through sharing an application, transforms the world. Um, it's a big statement, but think about it. And when you look at the university mission of each college, think about what they may be looking for in an application. We are looking for students both for admissions and for scholarships that can help us with this mission. When you look at the admissions process in the United States, it can be somewhat confusing for international students. There are two main types of admissions philosophy in the United States: holistic or formulaic. Now, holistic looks at the whole person. It's not just test scores and grades, but also recommendation letters, personal statement, your strength of your high school curriculum, how challenged you were in high school, and so on. We're looking at the whole person, holistic. Whereas formulaic is going to look very strictly at just test scores and GPA. So when you look at the admissions requirements at a university, are they more focused on test scores and GPA, or are they more holistic, where they're looking at more factors outside of just grades and test scores? Some schools are very holistic, some are very formulaic, some are a little bit of both. Some schools, for example, the engineering department may be more formulaic, but the English department is more holistic. So it can be different at one school. But this will give you a good idea on what the school is looking for. UIC is more holistic, but we're a little bit of both. But we're right closer to the middle here. When students ask me, I have an SAT score of 1200, can I get admitted and can I get a scholarship? I can't answer that because it's not just based on SAT. Yes, that may be a strong SAT score and it may help you, but we are more holistic in the way we view things. So we need to see the entire application. The holistic side is what gives a lot of stress to the international student because it's more mysterious. There are more factors at play, where formulaic is more common around the world, where it is strictly based on your grades and maybe a national test exam. You'll find many schools in the US that are a little bit of both or maybe very holistic. But it doesn't matter, holistic or formulaic. High school grades are always going to be most important. You need to have strong high school grades when applying as a freshman for either admission and for scholarships. But outside of high school grades, this is a survey of colleges and universities across the United States. And this is by the National Association of College Admission Counselors. And they asked, what do you consider considerably or moderately important when you're looking for admissions and for scholarships? And we're going to discuss each one of these in the list. The higher the percent on the right, the less selective the school. The lower the percent on the right, the more selective and the more difficult the admission and the scholarship program. We're going to start with the first two: college prep courses and strength of high school curriculum. About 96% of the schools said they consider this important, college prep courses, and 88% said strength of high school curriculum is important. So when you look at college prep courses, let's look at a student who just took all the regular required basic requirements in high school and has a 4.0 top GPA. Compare that to a student who also took either honors classes, accelerated courses, advanced courses like AP or IB, in addition to those regular classes, but may have a slightly lower GPA than the other student. This student is more competitive because this student is more college ready. This student has taken college prep courses in high school, and maybe the grades went down a little bit as a result, but the strength of their curriculum is better and more attractive to the university. And then we're going to look at the high school curriculum. We'll look at your high school to see what were the requirements and what opportunities did you have, and did you take advantage of those opportunities, whether that's extracurricular or advanced placement or college prep. Of course, if your high school didn't offer opportunities like this, we would not penalize you for that. Um, Not every high school, we understand, is the same, and not every high school offers these types of programs. So if it didn't offer it, we won't penalize you for it, and we'll understand that the environment you worked in maybe was more challenging, and you didn't have these opportunities. But again, it is a good idea to try to find these opportunities outside of high school any way that you can. So next, we'll talk about admission tests. Um, and again, if you have questions, uh, I'm going to try to address these before I move on. Let me see what we've got so far. So I see here from Pamela, do you accept medical students transferring from outside the US? Yeah, medicine again is a graduate program. Typically, you can't transfer to a graduate program in medicine. Undergraduate, we do have pre-medicine, and you can, of course, transfer from a foreign university into an undergraduate program with pre-medicine as a goal. Um, Another question here. You're a bachelor in theoretical physics, and I want to find a scholarship. Um, yes, and again, the sciences have more scholarship funding, so you do have an advantage there. On average, that's the case. But again, it's more than just the program you want to study, and again, we'll talk about that in the presentation. Good question from Tariq. I think high school grades might be very different according to the countries, and there are some special systems. How do they standardize this? Again, University of Illinois at Chicago, like many universities, will evaluate your transcripts and convert them to the US grading system. We have a team that specializes in this area, and we'll do that for you. And of course, we're going to talk to you about how we evaluated it based on the US system. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to talk about admission tests. So you have a choice. As an international student, you can take ACT or the SAT. Every college and university will consider the ACT or the SAT. No college would only require one or the other. You can take either one. Some differences between the two tests, and this is based on student feedback. The ACT can often be more straightforward with the questions, easier to understand, where the SAT, the questions require a little bit more thought and analysis. The ACT, though, has an emphasis on reading comprehension, so you'll need to read something and then be able to understand it. Whereas the new SAT, there's more emphasis on vocabulary and analysis. ACT has a science section where the new SAT does not test science. So students who are stronger in the science may prefer the ACT. Students who are better with vocabulary and analysis, but not so much science, may prefer the SAT. The math, though, is the same on ACT and new SAT. The ACT, the essay is argument focused, so it will want you to take a topic and argue a position, whereas the SAT is more about comprehension, the fact that you understand the question and you can write about it. So if you're more skilled and talented in argument based writing, you may prefer the ACT, whereas if you prefer more comprehension based writing, you may prefer SAT. The ACT, the score ranges from 1 to 36, whereas the SAT is 400 to 1600. So where the SAT, a couple points doesn't make a big difference with such a wide range, but on the ACT, 1 or 2 points can make a very big difference on your overall score. So those are the two tests, and my recommendation is that research both of them, go with whichever test you feel more comfortable with, um, and and there are practice tests online where you can practice the new SAT and practice the ACT to see which format you prefer. At UIC, we don't have a minimum required ACT or SAT. This is a range, though, of the middle 50% of who were admitted last year. And you can see, like in the health sciences, a range between 23 to 28. More competitive programs like engineering, 26 to 30. And this is all on our website. When you see a range like this on a website, you know that the university is more holistic in their admissions. A more formulaic university will tell you the minimum score required, whereas a more holistic university will give you a range like this. Now, more than 850 universities in the United States are test optional, meaning the SAT or ACT is optional. And you can see those schools at fairtest.org. UIC is not optional. We do require the SAT or ACT. And one thing I warn you with test optional schools is that for admissions, this is fine. Test optional means they're going to look more heavily at other factors like your high school grades, recommendation letters, personal statements. They'll be much more holistic. But at many test optional schools, the scholarship programs require the ACT or SAT. That won't be an option in most cases if you're applying for scholarships. So be aware of that because oftentimes test scores, in most cases with scholarships, test scores, ACT and SAT, are going to play a very important role in the scholarship decision. English language testing, usually scholarships are not tied to your TOEFL or your IELTS test. This is strictly for admissions to be sure that you have the English language skills necessary to be successful in the classroom. At UIC, the TOEFL minimum is 80, IELTS is 6.5. But we do accept other evidence of English proficiency. ACT English if you're a 24, or SAT reading and writing if you're a 570 or higher. We do not require TOEFL or IELTS. There's also AP English if you score a 4, or the IB English exam a 5, no TOEFL or IELTS. Also the Cambridge O levels, if you're taking your O levels and you score A, B, or C on 5 of them, no TOEFL or IELTS required, no English language testing. And there are more ways to be exempt from TOEFL or IELTS. Many universities in the US will offer similar pathways like this, or conditional admission, or they'll look at how many years you studied in an English-speaking country or in an English-speaking high school, and case by case they'll remove the TOEFL or IELTS. The next part, we're gonna talk about counselor and teacher recommendation. Let me see the questions here. Zawar asks, IELTS, SAT, or ACT, or both are required? Yes. IELTS is an English language test. SAT and ACT are academic tests. So we would require both. But an SAT or ACT, as I mentioned, the English or reading and writing score can satisfy, in many cases, the English language proficiency as well. So SAT and or ACT can satisfy TOEFL or IELTS, but TOEFL or IELTS cannot satisfy ACT or SAT in most cases because they're not academic tests, they're English language tests, if that answers your question. Okay. Next, we'll talk about counselor and teacher recommendations. About 59% of universities said this was considerably or moderately important to their admissions and to their scholarship decisions. This is an example of a counselor or teacher recommendation form. On the left side, you'll see all of the factors that the university is asking the counselor to evaluate you on: academic achievement, intellectual promise, quality of your writing, creativity in your thought, so on and so on. And they're going to rate you good, very good, excellent, or outstanding. Now, here is an example. This is a real example of a student who was admitted to an engineering program, which is highly selective, and received a merit-based scholarship. He or she was excellent or outstanding, top 10 to 5% in all of these categories. Academic achievement was good, above average. Everything else was excellent and outstanding. And this is based on the student's counselor or teacher recommendation. And then the counselor or teacher will need to write a short essay about you. Um, a good counselor or teacher recommendation comes from somebody who knows you very well, someone who you have worked with for at least a year or more in an academic environment. And this example here, um, the counselor says the student in the beginning is talented, motivated, and versatile. Three very powerful, strong adjectives that are right in the beginning. A good counselor or teacher recommendation uses adjectives like this to describe the student right at the beginning. And then in the rest of the information, um, supports the reason why with evidence and examples of why the student is talented, motivated, and versatile. Also has keen perception, exemplary analytic abilities, exceeded any challenges presented. Those are very strong, good words from a counselor, where a research university like UIC would get excited about a student with these types of descriptions. Okay, that's counselor or teacher recommendations. Do we have questions about this before we move on? Oh, there's a question from Pamela about um, the Cambridge exam score. Uh, does this apply to every university in the US? No, nothing applies to every university in the US. And again, I know this can be stressful, but every college and university in the US has the freedom to decide their own admissions policy. This is UIC's policy, and I can say that many colleges have a similar policy, but not everyone. And anything that I tell you today isn't always going to be true at every university. Um, when it comes to letter of recommendations, how much value, this is from Survey, how much value is given to recommendation you get from a job experience? I want to pursue an MS and EE. Well, at the graduate level, it is very important. At the undergraduate level, you can see on this list, we'll talk about it later, but at the bottom, only 20% of universities asked for work experience and considered that important. Now, these are the very highly selective schools that are looking for everything on this list in addition to work experience. But let's move on to essay or writing sample. It's important to practice writing essays. And here are a few questions that are very common in an application, whether it's admissions or scholarship. They're going to ask you questions like, what makes you unique? Describe an obstacle you overcame in the past. How do you learn from failure? These are all questions designed to kind of understand your personality and how you cope in a challenging academic environment. And again, to give the committee a little more insight on what motivates you or how do you learn, to see if you are a good fit with the academic environment at that university. And as I mentioned before, every college and university is different. All of them are looking for different things. If you're not admitted, it's not because you failed as a student. It's just because your application and your personal statement and everything that you presented wasn't a perfect fit with the university. Okay, so practice writing about questions like this. And every time you write these essays, they should be different. For each university, you want to understand the university you're applying for and write them for that university. These are some more challenging questions, and these are actual questions from very highly selective admissions and scholarship programs. Questions like, how do you feel about Wednesday? Why do you do what you do? Tell us your favorite joke. These questions are designed to really challenge your ability to take abstract information and respond to it in an application environment. So you could practice writing about questions like this. And when you write and practice these, have a counselor, parent, teacher, friend read your essay and give you feedback on how they felt about it. Um, and your first draft is never going to be your best draft. Write and rewrite until you feel comfortable about how you answered the questions. A good essay has a strong, clear introduction. It transitions into with supporting information of that introduction, and the conclusion re-summarizes the introduction. That's the very basics of a good essay. And when you practice writing essays, practice writing them following these areas and steps. Also with your essays, it's important to be focused and honest, but make it personal. The essays are designed not to see how intelligent you are about a subject. It's more to get an idea of you as a person and your personality for the more holistic view of admissions. Make it memorable. Some of the best essays are ones that admissions officers remember 15, 20 years later and say, that was a great essay, a great story, a great personal story that I will never forget. You can be a little controversial as long as you're balanced in your argument, and you show that you can be controversial, you can make a point, but you can understand both sides and support your argument with evidence and balanced information. It's also important to be smart. Making grammar mistakes, spelling mistakes, or putting inaccurate information will not help you in an essay. It's also important to be accurate. Putting information that isn't true, if the university finds out, or if it'll be a big problem, or if you copy information from another person's essay or another reference, that's considered plagiarism. It's considered cheating. If the university finds out, you can, of course, you won't be admitted because that's going to show that you may be a liability or have problems in college because plagiarism and copying other people's ideas is taken very seriously in the United States. So consider these factors when you're writing your essay. Student interest. About 50% of colleges said this was considerably or moderately important. I'm going to look for questions before I move on if we have any. Higher national diploma in mechanical engineering tech, and I want to know if there's a postgraduate diploma for mechanical engineering undergraduate. Definitely reach out to us, Abraham. I can connect you with the right people at the graduate college that can talk to you about that. Okay, student interest. What is student interest? About 50% of the schools said this was considerably or moderately important. Student interest means the student is actually interested in the university. We know that you apply to 12, maybe even 15 universities, but we want to know how interested are you in our university. We can see that in your essay. You can talk about why you're interested in this school, what makes this school attractive to you. Visiting campus is one way we gauge student interest. But as an international student, we understand you can't visit campus. But if you contact or respond to admissions, that's the same as a campus visit. And we keep records of all of your interactions with the university so that we can gauge how interested you really are. One of the best ways, though, is apply early. Applying early shows that you're more interested than the average applicant. And student interest can play an important factor in both admissions and for scholarships because we want to give our seats and our scholarship money to students who are most interested in our university and most likely to enroll and come to our university if they're admitted. Early decision and early action, many schools have this option. Early decision is binding, meaning you'll get a decision early if you apply early, but you must accept the offer. Early action, UIC is early action. You're not required to accept the offer, but you can apply early and get an early decision. And you will be more competitive for admissions and for scholarships if you apply early decision or early action at any college or university. There are also priority dates or deadlines. Some universities may say, if you apply by this date, we will give you priority consideration for scholarships and admissions. Regular decision is everybody else. And if you're applying regular decision and you're applying later, uh, you'll be much less competitive, especially for scholarships, because it shows that you may be less interested as a student in that university than students who applied early. When you contact admissions, be sure to think about the question that you're going to ask. A good question says, like, for example, here, I read about your certain program and I would like to learn more. Can you tell me about? It's important that we know you did your own research um, and then you asked a question that was thoughtful and it shows that you're really interested in the university. Avoid questions like this. How do I apply? That's on most universities' websites. That's a very simple question. It means you didn't do enough research. You didn't research the website. Um, if the website is confusing, then mention that and say, I read your website and this area is confusing to me. Can you explain? That's okay. But a simple, how do I apply, is not a good question to ask admissions. Another one is, attached are my transcripts. Can I get a scholarship? Um, if you email admissions and attach your test scores, your transcripts, and other things about you and ask, can I get a scholarship? Can I get admitted? Um, that does not help because that is what the application process is for. You need an application and you need to follow the application admission requirements in order to be considered for scholarships and admissions. It cannot be done by email and it won't be done by email with the admissions department. Okay, next we'll talk about class rank. And no questions so far regarding these factors. So I'll try to get to more questions at the end, but let's go to class rank. So about half of colleges and universities surveyed said they look at class rank. So they look at your GPA and they want to see what percent rank are you in the class? How did other students, what were other students' average GPA? Were you in the top 25%, top 15%, top 10%? A GPA often isn't enough information for us. A 3.23 could be top 25% at one school. It could be top 10% at another school. So we do look at class rank. Here's some examples of students that were admitted to UIC last year, their class rank. If you look at applied health science, for example, top 25%. With engineering, top 20% on average. So it varies by department, but top 20, top 25% is about common. Some other programs like liberal arts and sciences, top 30% is fine. But when it comes to scholarships, often you want to be in the top 20%, if not top 15, top 10%, depending on the scholarship amount and the selectivity of their admissions. Subject tests, this is SAT subject tests. About 38% of schools consider this important. There's only 3 reasons why you would take an SAT subject test. Number 1 reason is because it's required. Check if the school requires it. Very highly selective schools often require SAT subject test. At UIC, it's optional. And the only reason you would do it is because you want to show that you have a strong interest in a certain subject. So you want to show that you're very interested in math. You'll take an SAT subject test in math to show that you're interested. But another reason could be to improve your performance. So let's say your math grade wasn't very good in high school, but you improved. Take the SAT subject test in math to show that you've improved in that subject. If we see the low grade in math, but we see the strong score in SAT subject test in math, that could help you balance that out. So these are the main reasons why you would take an SAT subject test. Extracurricular activities and work experience, about 20% of universities, and this is where we get to the more highly selective universities for admissions and scholarships, also the more holistic universities, looking at extracurriculars and work experience. Here's an example of an application, a real application that a student that was admitted to a highly selective program here and received a scholarship. The student had extracurriculars in music, and we can see it was instrumental, community service as a volunteer, was in the athletics club, was the science and math club. It's important that if you have these activities, your counselor or teacher recommendation talks about them, because often it's one thing for the student to tell us these were the activities, but it helps if the counselor or teacher verifies this information and uses this information in their recommendation, just so we can be certain that this is accurate information from the student. Finally, interviews. Only about 15% of colleges said this is important. UIC does do interviews for our honors college. Interviews are required. And for an international student, the interview can be in person or online through Skype or some type of online program. Here are some interview questions. And it's good to practice interviewing. Do this in front of a mirror or with your counselor, teacher, or friend. Practice answering questions like this verbally. It's one thing to write about these questions in an essay, but it's a different situation when you're speaking face to face. And often with interviews, you won't have time to prepare your answers. These are some real examples. So the question could be, how will this program help you? Describe an obstacle you overcame. How do you learn from failure? Again, very similar to essay questions, personal statement questions, but it's different when you're answering them verbally face to face in an interview, and it's good to practice that. Some more challenging questions here, and these are real questions that I've taken from examples. What if all colleges closed tomorrow? What would you do? What are your other options? What has made you successful? Or why should you be chosen? Some are very abstract but very direct questions that can make you nervous, and all students get nervous answering questions. It's understandable, but the goal here is to see how do you respond verbally in an interview under pressure with questions that range in difficulty. So it's good to practice interview questions. That's the end of our presentation. I hope this information was helpful to help you become more competitive for both admissions and scholarships. You can email us, admissions@uic.edu, if you have additional questions about this presentation or about University of Illinois at Chicago in general. Contact us by phone or visit our website, admissions.uic.edu.
Great. Thank you, Richard. That was a very comprehensive presentation there, and there's a lot of great information. At this point, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. I've seen a good number of them come through thus far, and I have a couple for you. We're going to spend about 10 minutes on questions. And Richard, if you see any on the right side that you'd like to answer, go ahead. After the 10 minutes, we're going to end the broadcast, and you'll be able to see this video in its entirety on the Plexuss homepage at plexuss.com. I'm also going to post a link here to the UIC page on Plexuss. So if you do have any specific questions, there is a lot of information on the UIC Plexuss page. And you can also go to that Plexuss page, click on the Get Recruited button, enter into a handshake with UIC, and ask questions directly to Rick and his team on there. So I did have a couple here, Rick, for you. One of the questions was, besides the scholarships that you offer at UIC, are there any other ways that students can get scholarships through other entities?
Sure. Statistically for undergraduate students, only about 8% receive full scholarships from the university. Most international students that get scholarships are going to get small merit-based scholarships that cover a portion of their costs. So where do you look outside the university? And that could be through foreign government scholarships, private sources. There are a lot of great scholarship resources online, and I know Plexuss has a few that you can look at. But again, don't rely only on the university for scholarships. Look outside the university as well. Again, foreign governments, private institutions, nonprofit and for-profit organizations, all alike, corporations. There are a lot of different entities out there willing to give scholarships to international students depending on their need and what they're looking for.
Great. And we have another one here. It says it's about the TOEFL exam. How can they take the exam if they can't find it in their specific country? Is it available online to take the exam?
No. Again, TOEFL, IELTS, there's also the Pearson test of English. And again, there are waivers based on ACT, SAT, IB, AP. Again, it's not only TOEFL. But if you do need help, contact the admissions office. They can tell you, depending on which country you're in, what your options are. Most admissions officers can give you that guidance.
Perfect. And final question here. It's about being educated at home. What's the process from being homeschooled and applying to UIC? And are there any standardized requirements that would be students need to take to get to the point where they're eligible as homeschooled students?
Sure. Every university looks at homeschooling a little bit differently, but I can say for UIC, we do accept homeschooled students. What we typically ask for is some type of transcript, either from whoever provided the homeschooling or maybe it's an organization that the homeschool belongs to, some type of transcript that shows what classes you studied during the homeschool. For homeschool students, honestly, the SAT or ACT is going to play a little bit more heavy of a role in your admissions, because especially if we don't have a transcript and class ranking and those things. Nothing wrong with homeschooling. We admit homeschool students from all over the world, international students, and I know specific cases of students I've worked with that were homeschooled. But again, they worked very hard to get good ACT and SAT scores from homeschool backgrounds.
Great. And so those are all the questions I have for you. If anyone else has any further questions, feel free to post them on the chat on YouTube. Rick, if you want to stick around and answer some of those via the chat on YouTube, feel free. This video will be available, like I said, on the Plexuss website. Here, I'll post your contact information again on here. If you have any specific questions for Rick, you can contact him and his team via email or the website or via phone as well. And if you do have any more specific questions about UIC that you might be able to answer on Plexuss, we do have a lot of information there for you to visit and check out as well. Again, make sure that you complete as much as your profile on Plexuss as you are able to. The more information you have on your profile, the better candidate you'll be for being recruited on the system, especially uploading financial documentation is very, very important. But otherwise, thank you for your time, Rick. I do appreciate it. Very great content for the students that have been able to join us, and we'll have another follow-up sometime soon.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.